She married a billionaire 63 years older than she was. When he died, the will left her nothing, not a single dollar of the $1.6 billion he was worth. So she fought. She fought through bankruptcy court, through the Ninth Circuit, all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, not once but twice. The battle lasted 15 years. It outlived her. It outlived him. And when it was finally over, she still got nothing. This is not a story about a gold digger or a jealous son. Those are the labels the tabloids used. This is a story about paperwork, about a will that was never changed and a trust that was made impossible to undo, and how a few pages of estate documents can lock a widow out of a fortune before she ever sees a courtroom. Because here's the thing about a trust. Once it is made irrevocable, it is by design almost impossible to unwind. The most devastating crimes don't use weapons. They use paperwork. And this one climbed all the way to the highest court in the land, twice, over a single question that has almost nothing to do with money and everything to do with who gets to decide. In 1994, Vicki Lynn Hogan, the world knew her as Nicole Smith, was 26 years old, Playboy's Playmate of the Year, a model whose face was on billboards, whose name sold magazines and denim. The man she married was J. Howard Marshall II. He was 89. A Texas oil billionaire, worth around $1.6 billion. 63 years separated them. They were married just 14 months before he died in 1995. And to the world, the questions wrote themselves. A young model, an old fortune, a marriage that lasted barely over a year. The tabloids knew exactly what story they wanted to tell. But the questions the tabloids asked were not the questions that would matter. The only question that mattered was already answered, quietly, in ink, in documents most people would never read. Because by the time J. Howard Marshall died, the paperwork had already decided everything. When his estate was read, Nicole Smith received nothing. Not a share of the company, not a stipend, not a house, nothing. Everything, the oil fortune, the holdings, the $1 billion+ went to his son, E. Pierce Marshall. And here is where the paperwork turns cold. In the time around the marriage, J. Howard never set up a trust for his young wife. He never changed his will to include her. And his existing trust, the one that held his wealth, was made irrevocable, locked, sealed shut, structurally, so that its terms could no longer be rewritten. Not by a court, not by a change of heart, not by anyone. That word irrevocable is the whole story. A revocable trust is a document you can tear up and rewrite while you're alive. An irrevocable trust is a wall. Once it's set, the person who made it has, in most cases, given up the power to change who gets what. So even if J. Howard Marshall had wanted on his last day to leave his wife a fortune, the structure he'd already signed may have made it nearly impossible. The wall was built before anyone started arguing about it. Nicole would argue that none of this was an accident. She alleged that his son, Pierce, had wrongfully interfered, that he had blocked his father from providing for her and steered the documents to cut her out. There's even a legal name for the claim, tortious interference with an expected gift. In plain English, someone stepping between you and money a person meant to give you. But those were her allegations. Read that carefully, because it matters. The courts in this case would never rule on whether Pierce actually did anything wrong. They never found that he committed fraud. What Nicole was about to spend the rest of her life fighting over was not really about proving the crime. It was about which courtroom was even allowed to ask the question. So, she sued, and what should have been a probate fight in a Texas courtroom became something almost no inheritance case ever becomes. A federal case that would rewrite the map of American law. The battle ricocheted between courts for years. Because Nicole had also filed for bankruptcy, her claim against the estate landed in bankruptcy court. And that raised a strange technical question that had nothing to do with whether she deserved a dime. The question was jurisdictional. Which court even had the power to hear her case at all? The state probate court in Texas or the federal courts? In 2006, that question reached the Supreme Court of the United States for the first time. It was called Marshall versus Marshall, and the justices ruled unanimously 9-0 in her favor. A total victory on paper. But read the fine print of that win. The Supreme Court did not say she was owed the fortune. They did not say Pierce had done anything wrong. They ruled narrowly on something lawyers call the probate exception, deciding only that a federal court was allowed to hear her case at all. That's it. She had won the right to keep fighting. She had won nothing else. She had won, and she had won nothing yet. Here is the peak of the whole saga. Along the way, before it all came apart, a bankruptcy judge did something staggering. He looked at the case and awarded Nicole Smith more than $474 million. $474 million. For a woman who had been left nothing, not a dollar, it was the closest she ever came to being made whole. For one strange moment, the widow had won the fortune after all. The paperwork that locked her out had, it seemed, been beaten. And then, piece by piece, it was taken back. The award was reduced, appealed, fought over in one court after another. And in 2011, the case returned to the Supreme Court of the United States a second time, this time under a different name, Stern versus Marshall. This time, by a vote of 5-4, the justices ruled that the bankruptcy court had never had the constitutional authority to hand her that money in the first place. So the $474 million simply vanished. Understand exactly why. Not because a court found she was lying, not because a jury weighed the facts and turned her away. It vanished because the highest court in the country decided that the wrong courtroom had said yes. A jurisdiction technicality erased the largest number in the case. And by the time that final ruling came down, it no longer mattered to the two people at the center of it. Pierce Marshall had died in 2006. Nicole Smith had died in 2007. The 15-year battle had outlived them both. Two people fought over a fortune for a decade and a half, and neither of them lived to hear the ending. In the end, Smith and her estate received nothing. The answer at the finish line was the same as the answer on the day the will was read. 15 years. 2 trips to the Supreme Court. A $474 million win that evaporated on a technicality. And after all of it, the answer never moved. Nothing. The fortune was never really lost in a courtroom. It was decided long before anyone filed a single motion, in a will that was never changed, and a trust that was made impossible to undo. The lawyers spent 15 years arguing about power and jurisdiction, but the outcome was written in advance, in the fine print, on the day those documents were signed. So here's the uncomfortable question this story leaves behind. The documents that decide where everything you own will go one day. The will, the trust, the beneficiary line you signed once and forgot about. Those documents are quietly making decisions right now, whether you're paying attention or not. Do you actually know what they say? Do you know if the version that's in force is the version you meant? Because Nicole Smith had lawyers, headlines, the Supreme Court twice, and $474 million in her hand, and none of it beat a piece of paper that had already been locked shut. We read the fine print, so you don't have to. This is the fine print.